The member for Clark is seeking the call.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I seek leave to move the following motion: that the House 1 notes that the government is refusing to even debate the need for a gambling advertising ban, and 2, condemns the government for its complete disregard of the community's desire to ban gambling advertising and for the terrible harm such advertising facilitates.
Is leave granted?
Granted.
Leave is not granted to the member for Clark. The member for Clark has the call.
Move that so much of the standing and sessional orders be suspended that would prevent the member for Clark from moving the following motion: that the House 1 notes that the government is refusing to even debate the need for a gambling advertising ban, and 2, condemns the government for its complete disregard of the community's desire to ban gambling advertising and for the terrible harm such advertising facilitates. Speaker, I have not seen a more egregious and shocking abandonment of the public interest than this government's refusal to implement a ban on gambling advertising. I can only deduce that this government remains absolutely scared stiff of the gambling companies, absolutely scared stiff of the TV and media companies, and absolutely scared stiff of the major sporting codes who receive a payment from the gambling companies every time a bet is laid on a game. Speaker, this government simply does not care about the community interest. This government does not care that the incessant gambling advertising has the effect of grooming children for a lifetime of gambling and, for many of those children, many years of gambling addiction. This government does not care two hoots at the way the continual gambling advertising is ruining our enjoyment of watching the telly or going on a device, and particularly watching a game of sport. They simply don't care about the human toll of gambling addiction, and that's what ultimately this is about, Deputy Speaker. It's the human toll of gambling addiction. Gambling addiction ruins lives, ruins families, ruins businesses, takes lives. I think of a constituent of mine I met just recently. This constituent is a recovering gambling addict. He cannot watch TV. He cannot watch a streaming service. He can't even surf the net because every gambling ad is a trigger for his addiction. Why don't we care about such hurt in the community? Why is the government so beholden to the gambling companies, so beholden to the media companies, so beholden to the major sporting codes? I'll tell you why, Deputy Speaker, because they're gutless. They're completely and utterly gutless. And the arguments that are put up to defend their position are just undiluted filth. They do not withstand the slightest scrutiny. It's not too complex an issue to address. We have a blueprint. The Peter Murphy inquiry gave us the blueprint. It did the work. It heard from the witnesses. It teased out the issue. It gave us the solution. And we treat that committee's work, we treat all the witnesses who fronted that committee, we treat the committee's chairman with contempt when we throw that report in the bin and say, nah, we'll worry about it later. And these arguments that it'll be the death of commercial TV. Well, I say to the commercial TV companies, the companies, by the way, who are refusing to report the debate about banning gambling advertising, I say to them that if your business model relies on facilitating gambling addiction, then your business model is broken. And you don't deserve to be in business if your business model relies on stoking gambling addiction, grooming children for a lifetime of gambling, in the full knowledge that some of those children will grow up to be gambling addicts, and some of them, sadly, will even take their life as a direct result of it. And the arguments that are put up to us, it's reminiscent of the arguments or the debate around the ban on tobacco advertising in the 70s and 80s. Remember that, Deputy Speaker? We were told that if we ban cigarette advertising, it'll be the end of cricket. Good God, what an absurdity! But that argument back then in the 70s and 80s is no more ridiculous than the arguments that are being put forward by the government now. Heavens, we heard the Prime Minister in Perth a couple of months ago say the problem is poker machines. OK, well then do something about poker machines. Just for heaven's sakes, do something. Do something. Use the tax powers. Use the Corporations Act. Use all the levers at your disposal. Instead of just kicking the can down the road and not giving two hoots about the hundreds of thousands of Australians who are either gambling addicts or recovering gambling addicts. And while I'm at it, Deputy Speaker, let me make a comment about the relevant minister. The relevant minister who is refusing to drive gambling advertising reform. The relevant minister who failed with the attempt to introduce a Misinformation and Disinformation Act. The same minister who's driving this ludicrous proposal to ban social media for people under the age of 16, despite the good that social media does as well as the harm. I reckon the minister should go. Why the government is keeping that minister on the front bench down there just beggars belief. Part of the problem. I'll leave it to that, Deputy Speaker, and hopefully with the remaining time there might be a contribution from other honourable members.